Hi, my name is Layla, and I'm the owner of mybabyinheaven.com. And in this video, I want to talk to you if you have had an abortion or abortions in the past, and if you have not gone through an emotional recovery series. I didn't think that I needed to go through an emotional recovery series. I had abortions. I had three abortions and one miscarriage. My miscarriage happened when I was probably about 21 years old. My first abortion happened around 25. Then I had another one at 26. And I had my final abortion, I was probably around 33. And my first abortions I had with a guy that I was dating for about 7 months. I mean, sorry, 7 years. And he just wasn't supportive. When I first got pregnant, he thought financially we couldn't keep the baby. His mom was living out of state, and I really didn't have the best paying job. So, really, ultimately, I chose not to keep my babies because I didn't think that I could financially support my baby. Now I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. Now I have God in my life, and I know that God promises to take care of us. But around that time, I was an atheist. I was declared atheist. I had no relationship with God, and neither did he. So even though trauma still occurred, even though I was an atheist, even though I didn't feel that I had the support of him, so I made the decision to have an abortion, there was still trauma. And I'll explain to you some of the trauma that I had. A year later, I get pregnant again and we have another abortion. Then he and I end up breaking up, and I meet another guy who ended up being my husband. After about a year of dating him, I get pregnant and I have another abortion. And I'll talk about a little bit deeply why. So fast forward, and I'll go back to this, but fast forward, my husband passes away. Now my daughters are 11 and a half months old, and I find myself feeling very overwhelmed. I'm a single mom. I've got these babies, and I'm really overwhelmed. And for some reason, the memories of me having had abortions was coming back to my mind. After the last abortion, I said, okay, if I get pregnant again, I'm not going to have an abortion. I'm just not going to do it. I'm older. I'm just going to have a kid and I'm going to figure it out. So, since I had made that decision not to have any abortions, and then I get pregnant, and God still blesses me with twins, beautiful, healthy, smart, identical twin girls. And by the way, I prayed for them to be beautiful, healthy, and smart. And God over delivers. So, God gives me these babies. I should be overjoyed, right? I mean, I shouldn't feel um, burdened by having babies. And I felt guilty for feeling burdened. And then I kept thinking, man, God blessed you with these babies and you're overwhelmed and you're burdened instead of just being overjoyed because you had three abortions. Because now I'm already a follower of Christ. And I went on this website called whatisabortion.com, and I saw what the abortion, what an abortion actually is. So I thought, I went through all of that. I did all of that, and God still blesses me with babies, and I'm feeling burdened. So there was this guilt associated with that. So one day, I nursed my twins up until 2 months shy of their third birthday. And so I would wake up throughout the night. So they were probably around 2 at this time. And I wake up and I'm scrolling online and I see a woman that came out of Planned Parenthood after having had an abortion. She seemed really excited about the fact that she had an abortion. And there were the people outside, ministering and praying. And one of the women said, have you heard of, there's this organization called Rachel's Vineyard. And she says, have you heard of them? And I didn't catch that. I read through the comments and somebody said, oh, that was really nice of her to suggest Rachel's Vineyard. And I said, what in the world is Rachel's Vineyard? So I looked it up, and it's a Catholic based retreat where you can go and go through the emotional recovery after having abortions. So the very next day, I called the organization to see if there's something around me. And then I found out that it was Catholic, and I'm a born again Christian. So I thought, okay, well, I already know that I'm forgiven for all of my sin. I'll never have an abortion again. So I don't really feel that I need to go. But here's the interesting thing. I, like a lot of women that I speak to that have had abortions, think that just because it's in the back of your mind or you don't think about it anymore, that you're fine. But that's actually a sign that you're not fine. If you have this secret And it's in the back of your mind and you don't really talk about it. Even when you say, I've had abortions, and you say it in a whisper tone, that's you're hiding it. That's shame in there. That's something that the enemy can have a stronghold on you. So the fact that I was living in secrecy, the fact that I still had shame, and the fact that I had blocked memories, that's when I knew that there was unresolved trauma. So my husband passed away. I had kind of memories about when I found out that I was pregnant, and then I was deciding on an abortion. And the reason that I was deciding on an abortion was because I'd only been dating this guy for 1 year. Again, money. I'm building a new business in the financial services industry. I'm unmarried. I just barely started dating this guy. I'm pregnant and unmarried. So the solution was abortion. It just almost became so common and so regular because that's also how our culture tells us. You just have an abortion, it's just a clump of cells. And so it was just a natural thing for me to do, to have an abortion. But I blocked out a lot of the memories of the abortion. Like some memories come, if you've had an abortion, it's just sort of like cattle. They put you in there and then you sit down at the very end, and then they give you some orange juice or some cookies or whatever they give you, and then you get ushered out the back door into the alley, and whoever picks you up, and then you go. So some of those memories were still in my mind. But then I had to call my previous boyfriend and said, "Hey, do you remember how I acted during those abortions?" And he said, "Yeah, you were crying, you're upset, you didn't want to have an abortion." And then the memories started coming back of me pleading, "Let's just keep the baby. We'll figure it out. I'll get a better paying job. We'll do this." And he was like, "No, I don't want the baby," just stone cold and hard. And I felt like I didn't have his support. And because I didn't know God, I didn't have somebody to lean on for support. It was just this guy who wasn't showing me any support. So I just had an abortion. And then what happens is typically women that have had one abortion, it's almost like they relive the trauma and they have a second abortion. And part of me also had the second abortion because I was hoping that the second time he would be like, "Let's keep the baby." And he didn't keep the baby. He was still stone cold and hard. And I still didn't have God. So I didn't have God to lean on that would take care of me, that would guide me, that would give me this wisdom. So I had my second abortion. And after that, of course, I mean, how long can you really have a relationship? Two atheist people, they just had a couple of abortions. They don't have God or faith to guide them or give them hope. So eventually that relationship sizzled out. And then I meet the other guy, end up getting married to him. So now here I am. These memories are coming up. I call Rachel's Vineyard and I was like, you know what? I think I'm fine. Even though I couldn't even get the words out to her, even though I couldn't say I've had abortions, I just said, yeah, I did that. I had a couple of those. I don't even remember if I admitted to her that I had 3 of them. I just couldn't even admit the word abortion. And she asked me, "Have you memorialized your baby?" And I said, "No." I mean, I didn't even think about that. I always had an abortion probably around 6 months, or I'm sorry, 6 weeks to maybe 8 weeks, or a little bit. For some reason, 8 weeks seemed to be my cutoff. And when you go to Planned Parenthood, they're like, "Oh, look, it was just a little clump of cells." And they show you the little screen. But by the second time, I didn't even want to look at the screen. But they're like, "Yeah, it's just a clump of cells." Straight up lies. I mean, if you really, because then when you actually go to have a baby, and you get the little baby app, it shows you the development of your baby. And then just because you want to have the baby at that moment, all of a sudden it's a baby. From, "Oh my gosh, look at honey, we're 2 weeks. This is how small our baby is." All of a sudden you call it a baby when you're planning and you want to have a baby. But when you don't want to have a baby, they just show you, "Oh, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, it's just a clump of cells. Get rid of it. It's not a big deal." So so then when she asked me, "Have you had a memorial?" Of course I haven't had a memorial. I don't even know if it's a boy or girl or anything. And so I said no. And then she describes to me, we go and you do this memorial, we go through healing, and then you give your baby a name. A name. Again, this was 6 weeks. I don't even know if it was a boy or girl. I terminated. I have no idea what gender that baby is. But the Bible does say that God knows you in your mother's womb, meaning God knew that baby. I didn't. God knew that baby had a name. I didn't. So I said, "Okay, let me think about it." So prayed on it, think about it. I ended up reading this book. I think it's called, let me look it up really fast. Not surrendering the secret. That's another thing. Forbidden grief, I think it's called. Yeah. Forbidden grief. Okay. The unspoken pain of abortion. So I started reading that book, and I'm halfway through the book and I realize I have trauma. I have trauma that I haven't really dealt with. And some of the signs of trauma are secrecy, blocked memory, or triggers. Some women and the stories and the testimonies that I was reading, they would be triggered if they would smell orange juice. And they didn't realize why they were triggered at the smell of orange juice. And it's because they were given orange juice after their abortion. So they didn't make that connection. Some women would feel triggered if they drive near the street where the abortion happened. All of a sudden they'd feel anxiety and anger. I've personally met women that when they think and they go back into the memories of when they went to the abortion, their eyes start to welled up with tears. So that's trauma that you haven't processed. Just because you don't talk about it, just because you don't remember a lot of it, doesn't mean that there isn't trauma there. Even if you go on to get married again, have babies, or move on with your life, that is unresolved trauma that God wants you to be free. Those are strongholds that the enemy can use against you. Any type of unresolved trauma, even if you understand that you're a born again Christian and that you'll never have an abortion again, and that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, for that sin of abortion. He knew that you were going to have that abortion, even though you didn't. Your baby's in heaven. Even though all of that, yes, it's true, but there still is value in you processing those emotions and be able to talk about it and now share your testimony online, be a spokeswoman for another woman that's out there considering having an abortion. She'll look at your testimony and think, you know what? Maybe I will keep this baby. Maybe I'll build upon my faith, or maybe I'll even get to know God. So the more of us women share our testimony, and the more that we are burdened of this, or relieved of this burden of secrecy of abortion, the more God's army is going to move and save a bunch of other babies. But let me share with you. So I go through this healing at Rachel's Vineyard, and we go through forgiveness. We go through all of this. And at the very end, we get to the point we had to give our baby a name. And I said, okay, God, well, you have to give me the name of the baby, because I don't know if it's a boy or girl. You have to give me the name of the baby. So I sit with my little notebook and I look down, and then in my mind's eye, I visualize myself facing the toilet as I'm having my miscarriage. And I see the name Julia written above my head. And I wrote down, I said, okay, so that miscarriage was a little girl named Julia. So now I have 3 abortions with 2 different men. A guy that I was with for 7 years, and then my late husband. And so I saw the names Mark, Dylan, and Derek. And God said, switch these 2 names. I said, okay, so Mark, Derek, and Dylan. Okay. I don't think I told you about my husband where he passed away. He passed away in Hawaii in a flash flood. They never recovered his body. His body is in the sea. Okay. So after I get these names, I go up to my room and I look up the meaning of the names. And the meaning of the name Dylan is son born of the sea. And then Derek means the path, the journey. So to me, that was 100% God. That was 100% God. So then we do this, meditation, like a visualization. And so we get guided through. We're walking in the forest, and then there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's Jesus, and he's carrying our babies. Of course, in my case, he has 4 babies. So he's carrying my 4 babies. And that gave me so much peace, because it put life to these babies. They weren't a clump of cells. It was Julia, Mark, Derek, and Dylan. 3 little boys and 1 little girl whose lives I ended who I don't know who they could have been. I don't know what lives they could have led. But because I didn't know God, because I made decisions based on finances, because I didn't have a supportive husband, because I felt shame being unmarried, because I didn't think that I was ready, or fill in the blank, whatever reasons, I chose to have an abortion. That little baby boy and that little, well, girl, I couldn't control the miscarriage, but those little boys didn't have a chance. But God is taking care of them in heaven. And that gave me a lot of peace. So I want to show you this website, that this vision that God gave me. So, if you haven't done an emotional recovery series, if you don't have the time or maybe can't afford to go to a weekend retreat, or if there isn't a church near you that's having a series, or maybe a pregnancy clinic, because those are generally the places where you can find some of these. Or maybe if you don't want to do one of these emotional recovery series with a group of other women, maybe you feel more comfortable doing it from the comfort of your own home, go to mybabyinheaven.com. I created a 5-week video series that you can watch from the comfort of your own home. But I also recommend that you get the handbook. If you get this handbook here, it'll allow you to fill in, all the questions and to do the exercises. So I say that it's 5 weeks, but I mean, you could really do it yourself in a weekend, go through all the courses, and it'll guide you to giving your baby a name. And once you give your baby a name, head over to this baby memorial, and it's pink for girls and blue for boys. I guarantee that you are going to get the name of your baby. God's going to give you that. So you can take a look at some of the babies that are here under the baby memorial. If you want to submit a name, then you submit your name here, and I will mail you a little care package along with a certificate of life for your baby. And you get your own URL actually. So if you go here to the baby memorial, for example, here, you have, see, it says mybabyinheaven.com / baby Julia Aria, so the name of the baby, right? And so you can keep this. You can keep this. You can copy it. You can put it somewhere on your social media and share it, and just say, hey, you know what? I'm memorializing my baby that's in heaven. So everyone will get their own unique URL that you can share. If there's a man in your life that that went through an abortion, his partner went through an abortion, they need healing as well. So there's an option for a man to submit his baby's name, and then I'll do the same thing, and he'll get a certificate of life, and he'll get the little care package as well. And if you want to sponsor a mother, you can click here and sponsor a mother. And I also have some resources here for different types of organizations that will help you in your process. So head over to mybabyinheaven.com. Thank you so much.